Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So this is part 2 of 3 of day 3 of Trump's impeachment trial. So I left off with, their nonsense about trying to equate what happened at the BLM protests. But it was also really like laugh out loud funny and so hypocritical, because then Schoen played a clip of Jerry Nadler arguing against the impeachment of Bill Clinton. And then they cited James Wilson to make the case that if actions are protected under the Constitution, then they can't be impeachable. Basically, what they're saying is that if something is not in violation of the Constitution, then it's not an impeachable offense. Okay, well, then you just made the argument for Jerry Nadler back in the day because Republicans impeached Bill Clinton for a blowjob, for consensual sex with another adult. Last I checked here in America, that was not in violation of the Constitution. And as I mentioned the other day, I thought Clinton should have been impeached and removed. He proved that he was unfit. He proved that he had low morals, that he was untrustworthy, that he was someone who put his own interests and desires ahead of the country and the American people. And guess what? So has Trump. So is Trump. And in far more egregious and outrageous ways. Another thing that just made me laugh was the way that Van der Zeen, I believe is his name, he was the final attorney that came up and then spoke throughout the day when they did the question and answer period. The way he said the word over, I know it's silly, but he sounded like the teacher in Ferris Bueller's Day Off with Bueller. He was saying over. I had to find some sort of pleasure and jokes in this whole thing because it's so frustrating and it's so sad. You're watching this knowing that the House managers are doing an awesome job and it's going to do no good. He's still going to walk. He's still going to get away with everything, just as he has for the last 4 years. So you have to find pleasure wherever you can with this. But the House managers also told reporters that Trump's attorneys lied. One of them got up there, and it may have been this Van der Zeen guy, I can't remember, but they said that they weren't given the new security camera footage prior to the trial. But the House managers said, no, all parties received that footage prior to the trial. The fact that they were put on this case at the last minute and they didn't have a lot of time to prepare is not the House manager's fault, it's Trump's fault. And then Trump's rambling attorney from day one, Bruce Castor, he lied about what the word insurrection means. He basically said that it refers to a pre-planned uprising by a government body or something to that effect. When in fact, if you look at the Webster's Dictionary definition, which I did and posted it on Twitter, so hopefully someone can pass it along to him, this is the definition, quote, an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government. There is no other definition in the English language. There's no second version of that. Is that not what we saw on January 6th? So he was trying to say they keep using the word insurrection. It wasn't an insurrection. Okay, well, let's call it really what it was, a terrorist attack. A domestic terrorist attack. That's what I would have gotten up and said. I would have said, do you prefer that, Castor? Is that more to your liking? He also tried to prove through Trump's words and tweets about BLM protests that he's against all violence. If that were true, then why did he not explicitly denounce the violence on January 6th, on the day it took place? Why didn't he take immediate, decisive action to stop it? Why was it nearly 2 hours later that until additional law enforcement was finally deployed and approved to move in and help? Even then, by all accounts, it wasn't Trump who did that. It was Mike Pence who finally made that call and was able to get help. And it was days later before Trump made an actual statement against those people while it was happening. And then shortly afterwards, he was telling them he loved them. We love you. We know it was stolen, but this is what happens. Basically, like telling everybody, you deserve this. I tried to tell you this is what was coming. And then Trump's legal team failed to make a single argument about his stoking of violence and fear and a feeling of loss and desperation for 4 years, but especially in the final 6 months of 2020. They kept acting as if the whole case was about that one day, that it was just about January 6th. No, you don't go hear a cult leader speak once and boom, you're in the cult that night. I'm sure that happens every once in a while, but typically it takes a while, just like it did with Hitler. It wasn't like Hitler gave one speech and boom, the next day they were rounding up Jewish people and murdering them. It took a while. When you lie to people over and over again and tell them that they're being ripped off and that they are having their vote stolen, and then others follow your lead and back you up on those lies and do the same, how can you expect anything less than a violent uprising? And if Trump didn't want or anticipate the violence that day, then number one, as the impeachment manager said, why was he not shocked by it? Why was he not appalled by it to the point that he would take immediate action? If you didn't mean for that to happen, you would step in. You would do whatever you had to do to stop it. And why did he call for everyone to come to DC that day? That was one point that they made that was really great. He could have told his supporters to come any other day. In fact, something else that came up, there was another group who had gotten permits for that day in the ellipse. And Trump made sure that their permit was canceled so that he could hold his event. You know, he didn't have to call people to come to DC. He could have told his supporters to call their senators, call your congresspeople, urge them to do what we want, urge them to overturn this election. He could have told his supporters to take any number of actions, to do an online social media campaign, and to put pressure on them that way. He didn't need to conduct a live mass super spreader event in the middle of a global pandemic, and especially when people don't have the money or ability to freely travel. But he did. Why did he feel that it was a necessity to do that in person that day at that location? And again, like I said yesterday, what did he mean by will be wild? What, him speaking? They've heard him speak before. He had a bunch of other people there talking. He's done that before. What was supposed to be so wild? He made mention of it going down in history. This will be, history making. People will remember this. Why? If this was not his intention, what were those phrases about? All right, guys, so that's the end of part 2. I will pick up for the end of this saga. But yeah, they just made such asses out of themselves. But again, it doesn't matter. They could literally stand up there and sing, I'm an Oscar Mayer wiener. I mean, they could do anything. You could recite the Gettysburg Address. They could do whatever they want, and it wouldn't make a bit of difference. People's minds are already made up. That's the really sad part. As always, thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon. Be sure to check out part 3, which is the final segment.